We're dealing with a government and financial system that oftentimes keeps us in the dark or just gives us half-truths, so we're not looking too deep into what's actually going on. Every few years, I'll say, we get these very carefully scripted messages from our financial leaders, our government, that promises stability and reassurance about our economy. In this video, I'm not explaining anything specific. I'm just going to show you a couple clips from the latest NABE meeting that took place a couple weeks ago, and well, you'll see.
Our economy is strong overall and has made significant progress over the past 2 years toward achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices. Labor market conditions are solid, having cooled from their previously overheated state. Inflation has eased, and my FOMC colleagues and I have greater confidence that it is on a sustainable path back to 2%.
People are working more, but not necessarily earning more. The data says one thing, the economy is growing, but the people, the Americans, are feeling the complete opposite. They spoke about the revised consumer data, because you know how the government drops data and then revises it right after, showing that Americans have been able to save more money than they thought while spending more than they make. Don't take it from me. Let's just get into the next clip.
It has looked as though consumers were spending more than their income. We see disposable personal income now being estimated up. And so that's no longer the case. Again, removing what we've been thinking of as a possible downside risk that the level of consumer spending might be unsustainable. So we look at that, and again, it looks, these were very large, healthy upward revisions to income.
So we had, income was revised upward, spending was revised upward, but income was revised upward so much more so than spending that the savings rate came up.
That's right.
Even with greater spending.
Yeah, the savings rate too. So we think savings are now, there are more savings on people's balance sheet, and the savings rate is higher. So that speaks of more kind of background that suggests that spending can continue at a healthy level.
We're making so much income that there's more savings than we thought would be possible. As you can see on the right side of the screen, there's a 96% chance that the Fed will drop interest rates and a 4% chance that they won't. And this is completely dependent on core inflation data and employment reports. Yesterday, we got the PCE report showing inflation at 2.7%, which is higher than they actually expected it to be. The initial expectation was 2.6%. Now, while this doesn't seem like a crazy increase, it doesn't really capture the real cost increases that affect our daily lives. You know, rent, gas, food, those are usually much higher than what the government is showing us now. So the recent events like the hurricanes, the strike, they definitely could have changed this month's job report data. And if it looks bad, they're likely still going to push for that 0.25% drop. We're most likely not going to get anything higher than that, but they're still pushing for 2 drops this year. One for after the November meeting and one after the December meeting. There's percentages of those, 69.9%, they will drop, and 29% they will. The last time the Reserve had a meeting, the interest rates were at 5.5% and they got cut by half a percentage. The current interest rate is at 5%, but their overall goal is to get it around 3% by the end of 2026. Here's the thing, you know, if GDP is growing fantastic, as you can see, it's growing at 3%, which is amazingly good. And unemployment is at 4.1%, which is amazingly low. So if everything is fine, technically speaking, we should be raising interest rates, but the government can't afford that. Now, just like us, the government pays interest on their debt. Of course, when the interest is low, it's going to be super easy to manage, but once it starts going up, it gets a little wicked. See, we're kind of in a tough situation because our government has over $35 trillion of accumulated debt and are now paying over $1 trillion every year in interest payments. Over time, as interest payments grow, this begins to get unsustainable, and they're handling the debt with their main source of revenue, taxes.
So here's how much the government's collected in taxes over the fiscal year of 2024. As you can see, it's just over 4.9 trillion. And then this is how much they've spent, 6.7 trillion. As you can see, that's quite a difference, leaving us with a deficit of $1.8 trillion more in debt. And how are they going to handle this? Printing more money in the trillions. Now here's what the top expenses are: Medicare, Social Security, the National Defense, net interest, health, income security, and so on. We're almost at $2 trillion of debt just from this year's overspending.
Now, if interest rates drop, this may seem like a good thing, but not everything drops, including how much the government has to pay in interest. So let's take a look at this chart again.
With nearly $2 trillion over our spending budget, if we cut back, who's going to get affected?
Now, you might be thinking, can't the government just print more money? Well, yeah, of course they can, but that's highly inflationary. And we're at a point where the rate of deficit, borrowing, and interest payments are raising so hard, our government quite literally cannot afford a recession.